Now, I usually do an intro something like, "Hi, everyone, invisible audience out there, and welcome to Words, Images, and Worlds. So glad on this snowy eve in the mountains to be talking with comics creator JC Vaughan. Do you prefer to be called JC? Is that workable?"
Honestly, the only thing I'm picky about is in print. I'm JC, but Jeff, Jeffrey, J. Curtis, JC, Tex, hey you, whatever.
That works. That works. You have to be consistent with the print. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, that's it. And that's and it started out probably as it sort of started as a vanity thing. I was on
Hmm.
the college newspaper staff, and one of my good friends got promoted, and all of a sudden his middle initial appeared in his name.
Oh,
And
yes.
so then suddenly I changed mine from Jeff to Jay Curtis, just because I couldn't stand that,
Yeah.
and that was it, downhill from there.
I understand. I understand. The format matters. So I'll mention a couple of titles that I know you best for.
Sure.
You mingle the worlds of 1920s crime and vampires, which I really appreciate with Al Capone. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you've also worked in the world of Stargate titles as
Absolutely,
well.
absolutely. My longest running series, the combination of Vampire PA and Al Capone Vampire,
Hmm.
on the creator owned side, which Al Capone Vampire grew out of Vampire PA,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and and then the longest, my private longest run is in the Stargate comics. Did 12 issues of Stargate Atlantis
Hmm.
and 6 issues of Stargate uh, Universe and 4 issues of an anthology title that was both Universe and Atlantis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never got a shot. I helped some friends who worked on the SG1 title for a different publisher, but I never really got a shot at that.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the range. I love the science fiction, supernatural crime. It's a great testament to just the fact that you can do any kind of story in comics that really you
I
want to do.
I the great thing about comics to me is it's exactly what you just said. You can do whatever story you can imagine, and you can do something simple and elegant, or you can do the $300 million movie.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we are at a stage where special effects have caught up with Stan and Jack or Stan and Steve,
Hmm.
and and that's great. And I've seen plenty of the superhero movies and I love them. I've seen plenty of the comic inspired non-superhero movies and love them.
Hmm.
But the fact is that there's something magic about the page, and I think one of the unique things is that our words are part of the art in a weird way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because we're reading and doing it iconography. I'm saying that poorly. Doing it with iconography, as well as the blending of the words, and even sound effects.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it all goes to our visual brain to process, which is really interesting. And I think that there's a lot to be done with the way we do our imaging that movies can't replicate.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I'm not opposed. Somebody wants to come along and pay me the money to do Al Capone, I'm all for it. You know, absolutely. And my Hollywood managers tossed out some pretty darn interesting names.
Yeah,
You
that would be great.
believe it, 2 weeks after the check is cleared, I have to sit down and write more comics. But
Yeah.
it's great to enjoy for 2 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but but the fact is, there's stuff we can do that they can't. And as
Yeah.
long as that's true, there's a great place for comics.
Well, even the way comics work with the static image, and you as the reader, you still have to be involved in that process. Movies kind of do
Sure.
some of that lifting for you, but
Sure.
uh,
I have had a number of discussions with creators that I really respect about what goes on in the panel borders.
mhm, mhm.
And it's almost as if you take panel one, and then panel two should be about as far as your brain can handle it getting different from panel one, but maybe a step or two back toward panel one.
Mhm.
And then that panel border, your brain fills in the best. It's like my dad was a big fan of saying that radio had better pictures.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah.
because the brain is engaged. And in that panel border, your brain is filling in the motion that happened because we are, as you said, looking at static images.
hmm hmm You mentioned before I hit record that part of your journey involved interviewing creators, and I'm curious about what that journey was like and how
Oh,
you arrived at comics.
that's a great question, and I'm sorry, I love talking about it. Um, I
You are
uh,
fun.
I was at a stage in my first career where I was becoming a manager. I was always going to school. I loved learning
hmm
and taking different courses and things like that. But I could have easily drifted away from comics, and all of a sudden there was this surge, and it's happened to me two or three different times as I grew up. When First Comics and those guys came along, particularly American Flag
hmm
and stuff like
hmm
that, totally kept me interested. And then in the early 90s, when Valiant comes along, and I didn't want to get another comic company. I didn't want to, and a series of events happened all of a sudden. Like inside of a month, I got everything that they had published to that point,
hmm
uh,
hmm
and I got fired up of it. But I was still eager for other stuff, and I started emailing with Terry Moore from
uh
Strangers in Paradise, and Terry's first published interview was my first published interview, and
Nice.
it was in the Styx distributors catalog. It came out a day before my first Overstreet article. Uh,
Cool. Very cool.
and and then because those were the days it depended on what uh what distributor depended on what day you were getting your comics.
hmm
And so my comic shop that I went to then, it was called Heroes, uh had I think they had two new comics days and then a reorder day. So I was always there. And and I think one of the people there managed the intro to Terry. I did an interview with that. Did an Overstreet article in pretty short order after that, uh, and really sort of went to town. Really reached a point very quickly that I was afraid not to do what I wanted to do,
hmm
and
hmm
so when Bob Overstreet sold Overstreet Publications to Steve Jeppy and for Gemstone Publishing, I went to some of his people didn't want to make the move from Tennessee. I was willing to move from Texas, and I joined the staff as associate editor. I was a few years older than some of the guys because I had already had my first career, and a lot of them were young guys starting out. So I had a little more ability to not freak out at things, a little ability to be a little less impressed with things,
hmm
and uh, and so I think that made me a steady hand. And 29, coming up on 29 years later, I'm the president of the company.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so
Nice.
I've had a full-time job for like about 28 and three quarters years, doing, writing about comics,
hmm hmm
documenting comics, interviewing some legend, like hanging out with some legendary people. And, as a business, we throw legendary around like we're being paid to do so. But I mean, seriously, I'm sitting at a dinner with Jerry Robinson, who created the Joker and Robin.
Yeah.
I mean, for Pete's sake, it's just amazing.
hmm
And
hmm
and getting to meet some of these people, and Murphy Anderson and Will Eisner,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
and not only that, uh, some of these guys were actual friends too, and that
hmm
was, the fact that if I've got a question, I just call Jim Shooter and just ask. And I mean, if you tell 13-year-old Jeff this, he
Yeah.
wants to believe you, and he probably believes you more than 16-year-old would have.
You're right.
But it still would have seemed like a fantasy. And so, my day job is I run a book I grew up reading, and then and I still love comics so much that I take all my free time and I'm writing comics.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. But you mentioned American Flag,
Yeah,
to have worked with Howard Chaykin on some of your work as well
yeah.
in Al Capone.
First commissioning him to do a price guide cover, and and even going as far as getting Ken Brusenak to do our logo that year,
hmm
uh,
hmm
was really a treat for me, because I don't know any creator that's in my age range that wasn't influenced it, even if it was decisions like, oh, Chaikin did that better, I can't do that. It
Yeah.
still influenced you. And then to get him to do a cover for Al Capone Vampire was, man, seriously, if you can't stop and enjoy the moments like that,
Yeah.
where his one of his comics, like I said, there's these periods where they keep me in comics, and Flag and a lot of first comics, Star Slayer and Nexus, really responsible for keeping me energized about it at a time where, like I was paying my own way through school. I could have, you know, I could have drifted away and paid the bills.
Hmm. Hmm.
But those guys kept me energized. So when I get a chance to work with Howard Chaykin, and I told him what I wanted, I said, use Shadow, Blood, and Judgment #1 as a springboard.
Hmm.
No mini Uzis, Tommy gun. I'd like to see his fangs. That was the entirety of my description to him.
Very
And
invitational.
and absolutely, and just leave it in his hands and trust him. And this is the thing that I've been blessed with, working with all these great cover artists on the Overstreet book,
Hmm.
is you sort of develop a feel for who needs guidance
Hmm.
and who needs the broadest possible framework.
Right.
And if I didn't trust a Howard Chaykin to do Howard Chaykin, I might have tried to micromanage that.
Hmm.
But thank goodness we've got a lot of friends in common. Talked to a couple of guys ahead of time. Came up with my succinct as possible, open kind of pitch. He did it. I didn't even see a sketch. I opened it up, saw the finished colored product,
Nice. Nice.
and I was doing pretty much a shadow laugh because I was that happy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's just that kind of thing. Aaron Lopresti, totally different direction, but his
Hmm.
cover for #2, I said, yeah, why don't you go look at Tomb of Dracula and covers as a springboard, but I don't have anything particular in mind. And he said, okay. And what I got back was freaking perfect,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know? And then if you look at Mark Wheatley's cover on #3, I had shared those covers with him.
Hmm.
I didn't even ask him to do the cover. He's just my friend. And
Nice.
I got the piece in, and I was just, and another little send back to the Untouchables Capone, because he's got the baseball bat in his hands.
Hmm.
And so it's
Hmm.
just a ton of fun, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine when you open something up like that, and if it's been something that's been in your mind on the script and you get it back from the artist, I imagine that's a moment of just sort of the universe coming together in a way.
It absolutely is. And it came together on Howard Chaykin's cover. It came together even better that I was flipping through his at Baltimore Comic Con. I was flipping through his pages that he had for sale,
Hmm.
and it was in there. And I literally dropped it and turned around and walked away because I knew it was going to be too much. And a good friend David Armstrong was working Howard's booth with him, just sitting there, and I just started doing signing, like, how much is it?
Hmm.
Tell me, I can't even look, and I'm very happy to have that in my collection. I do not have a big original art
Wonderful.
collection, and to have that, and that's going on the wall. I mean, that can be one of. Now, listen, if somebody wants to pay me obscenely too much, I'll have to consider it. But otherwise, they can pry it from my cold dead hands.
Yeah, you have that personal connection. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really almost all the art that I have left is something that either somebody gave me personally,
Hmm.
and that, or it is from one of my pieces. And like I've got Mike Oeming's page 1 of issue 1 of Jim Kruger's Foot Soldiers.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
And that was and Jim was like one of my early connections in the industry, and when he was a marketing guy at Marvel, just doing that comic at Dark Horse,
Hmm.
and that's when I found, he's like one of those guys that if you tape over his mouth, ideas come out his ears. And I loved and still love Foot Soldiers. So and that's part of what I tell everybody about this, which is, I work more than full time in comics. I
Hmm.
write comics on the side. I still collect. If comics go south for me, I'm in real trouble. So I really go after the stuff that gets me excited, and I tend to hang on to it too. Like,
Yeah.
you put Manhunter whatever format you put it in, I'll buy it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Dave Stevens Rocketeer, same thing.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, you already have this 12 times. I don't care.
It's a passion. It's a passion for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mentioned that you tend to work in science fiction,
Yeah,
supernatural. Are there particular parts of a story that get you going as you're creating and that are like connection points for you?
sure. And it might not be the ones that would grab other people. And I
Hmm.
think every writer comes to it differently.
Hmm.
Um, I tend to look at things that I would love to see. And uh, there are things that I do that a Marvel or a DC, and no denigrating them, that they would never do.
Hmm.
And the great thing about uh, both crowdfunding and indie press, both separately and together, is that you can set out and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
may not get any readers to go with you, but you will, and sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But sometimes there's just stuff that's got to get out of my head
Yeah.
so I can go on to the next thing. And sometimes there's stuff where I like it so much I want to continue it.
Hmm.
And it's I don't have a particular spark that is the same spark in every instance,
Hmm.
except that thing like, yeah, I'd like to read this.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I
Like
love that.
for instance, um, it's much easier to say on the creator owned stuff than it is on Stargate. I had a very specific agenda with my co-writer Mark Haynes,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that was we wanted people to feel like this was the two series that we did. I mean, Stargate Universe and Stargate Atlantis. We wanted them to feel like continuations of the show. MGM
Hmm.
was not about to let us say, season 6 and season 3, respectively. But we absolutely approached it that way. And Mark was the continuity cop, and we're both pretty good at dialogue and making him sound. We did 24 based on the Fox TV show, and of
Hmm.
course, if you can't do Jack Bauer's voice, you need to not be writing that comic.
Right.
Uh, and the so in license realm, my agenda is real specific.
Hmm.
Make it feel like the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes where the show has a cliffhanger, or an untimed ending, as in the case of Atlantis and Universe, uh, we definitely wanted to pick up exactly where the show stopped, and we did.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I imagine that is also its own kind of reward, especially someone who enjoys the story to be able to go in and sort of bring your vision to it and
Oh yeah,
craft. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And there's we got forwarded an email from the Fox people mistakenly when we were doing 24, and they were telling the IDW guys, your guys nailed it. And then I met John Cassar as one of the executive producers and directed many of the episodes of 24, and he liked it. Hung out with Manny Cotto, and God bless him, and he liked it, and they were like really complimentary. And then
Hmm.
on Atlantis and Universe, we've met a bunch of people going to GateCon, more less on the production side and more on the actor side in that and with those shows. And we've had a lot of fun. We've dropped some of them deliberately into stories and had fun with the characters. Uh,
Nice. Nice.
the folks that we've got to know, like Gary Jones, who played Walter Harriman on all the Stargate shows,
Hmm.
we got to know him pretty well, and so we even gave him an adventure in one story. I tried to make it a multi-parter, and MGM killed that. Uh, but it was uh, it's a fair amount of fun
Yeah.
doing that, and it really is, um, when you know that you've connected with that audience.
Hmm.
It's a little bit of fun because in my case and in Mark's case with Stargate, we're both fans.
Hmm. Hmm.
We probably wouldn't take the gig just to have a gig.
Hmm.
We both got more than enough work on our plates, and so we tend to go to what we want to do, and Stargate definitely falls in that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious about what currently has your creative attention, and are there worlds out there that you would like to create in that you haven't yet
Oh,
tapped
absolutely,
into?
absolutely, absolutely. First off, what I'm working on now, insanely, is Captain Action versus Al Capone Vampire.
Love it, love it.
Um, that'll be out. Certainly be out in July, maybe a smidge before that. I don't know how the scheduling is going on that, but we definitely need to have it for San Diego.
Love the
Um,
continued universe. Love it.
and it really it the and the thing I'm having fun with this because I think I've got a take on it that will not violate either incarnation, either character. I think
Hmm.
it'll really be in keeping with both. And uh, two of the three Captain Action guys pot in right away, and one of them was like, "That sounds insane." And then when I explained it to him, he goes, "Okay, insane but good. Okay." Uh,
That's a
and
compliment.
yeah, absolutely. And so I just we've just finished the pencils on a 4-page teaser sequence for that, and
Nice.
guys are starting to work on cover concepts for that right now. I've got another both Vampire PA and Al Capone coming up also. Probably a flip book because retailers hate them. Al Capone Origins and Vampire PA Origins, and probably be a 2-issue miniseries. Uh,
Nice.
and it's fun. I'm gonna have a guest writer or two on the Capone stories that are set in different eras. The first Capone story is actually set in back in Prohibition
Hmm.
with throwbacks to the modern story, and it's the
Nice.
first one we're doing that. I'm gonna meet with the guy I want to write that. I've plotted it out, but I think this guy could do a better job than me with that, and also just want to work with him. And then beyond that, I've got a couple other things. The Frame brothers and I, Brendan and Brian Frame, who do Al Capone and Vampire PA,
Hmm.
we did in David Lloyd's Aces Weekly digital anthology. We did a serialized graphic novel called The Flight,
Oh, cool.
and it's about the last survivors. It's science fiction again,
Hmm.
last survivors of mankind on a desperate flight to the stars for a planet that might survive, that might support human life, and basically finding that human nature may be one of their enemies.
Hmm.
And so we're going to do a collection of that. I haven't put it on the schedule except to say 2024. I've been investigating some printing that might allow us to do a hardcover cheaper than we could do a softcover. So I've been vanity wise, I would freaking love that. Uh, but we'll do whatever we can to get that out there. We'll also do a collection of the first Al Capone series, and then outside of comics, I've got Mark Haynes and I have a pilot at Roddenberry Entertainment that we've been developing,
Very
uh,
cool. Very
and sort of
cool.
sort of weathered the COVID storm, and then we were just about ready to go out with it, and then you get a writer strike and an actor strike.
Hmm.
And as soon
Hmm.
as they're over, yeah, it's time for the holidays. So we'll see what happens in January or February with that, whether
It'd
we
be
whether they
great to
really go
see.
out with it or not. And and it's it's a it's a it's a post-apocalyptic story about optimism being a choice. And
Interesting.
it in many ways, it's very much in keeping with the Roddenberry name and the hopeful future of Star Trek, but it's
Hmm.
starting from a bleak space
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
applying those lessons. But it actually really fits to be with Roddenberry, and yet it's not Star Trek, which is sort of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. My curiosity is definitely piqued. So I hope that comes to
Okay.
be.
Thanks, man. I mean, my like I said, my whole attitude about Hollywood is, you know, hey, believe it when the check clears. Maybe 2 weeks
Yeah.
after the check clears, I don't know. But it's a good pilot.
Hmm.
It's the story Bible's solid. The euphemistically named one pager, which is really 2 pages, is it's like I would want to look at the show. I'd want to read the script. I'd want to make it, but I
Yeah.
think I'm biased. So
Yeah, yeah. I follow movie news all the time,
Hmm.
and there have been so many announced projects over the years, and here we are years later, and I'm like, where is that story?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sending
Yeah,
sending all
and
the green
listen,
light vibes.
I have friends who have made a career out of selling TV pilots that didn't get made. They still got paid.
There you
And
go.
honestly, as a writer, that's what you're looking for is you want people to pay you for your work.
Hmm.
Yes, it would be great if somebody made the movie of this. Yes, it would be great if somebody made the TV show for Pete's sake. Of course it would.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I can have stop having the people I went to high school with looking at me like, oh, what did you do? But
Right, right. That's always a goal. Always a goal.
yeah, and I go back to Stargate Universe for a minute.
Hmm.
My friend Ming Na Wen was on that show. And then
Hmm.
she went on to become, Melinda May on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And now she's Fennec Shand on Boba Fett and Mandalorian. So, she works a little.
Yes,
And
she does.
so writing stuff for her character was a little bit of fun.
Yeah,
But I must admit, I'd sort of like to do it on the screen.
for sure. Absolutely. Um, Curious as a final official question, and then we can
Yeah,
hit anything that we missed. I know that your work is out there in different places.
yeah.
People can go and they can find Al Capone Vampire, but I'm curious about the best place to go, the sort of go-to
Sure.
spot.
Right now, best place is comics. I don't have my own online store. I do crowdfund periodically, and you can find me both on Kickstarter and on Indiegogo.
Hmm.
When I do that, we'll probably start something again toward the end of January. There, regular comic shops. I tend because I'm a political creature in my day job and work with a lot of retailers.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
tend not to recommend one over another, but I will tell you can find most of my stuff on mycomicshop.com.
Hmm.
Um, Al Capone number three comes out as we're recording this. Al Capone number three comes out Wednesday.
Wonderful.
Um, and then in January, hang on a second, I'm getting that little flashing light. I better plug in.
Hmm.
Uh, the Al Capone number four comes out approximately the same time a month in January. And
Fantastic.
that's the conclusion of this series. Number three is pretty cool because it's the vampire origin of Al Capone. Uh, and we've even got some actual prison records, real prison records, and death certificate in there,
Oh,
and had a
wow.
lot of fun. Had a lot of fun integrating them into the story. Um, that is the best stuff that I for getting my stuff now. And then Free Comic Book Day will be
Hmm.
the Overstreet Guide to Collecting Comics, which is actual comic about the first part's about building a relationship with your retailer
Hmm.
and the second one's about bagging, boarding, and boxing. So it's super practical.
Yep.
With also we'll have the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide to Lost Universes. And the gemstone stuff you can always get at gemstonepub.com. We don't do a lot of we don't do a lot of free shipping or anything else like that because we're really trying to drive people to the retailers.
Hmm.
But every once in a while, we throw in a handful of specials and stuff like that. But the Lost Universes book is fun. It's my baby. It is the first edition, had the Archie MLJ heroes, and which have been around on and off for 80 years.
Hmm.
And then also like CrossGen and Dark Horse's Comics Greatest World and Original Valiant, Original Milestone, Malibu Ultraverse, Marvel's New Universe, things like that. The new one will be the Fawcett Captain Marvel family,
Oh, cool.
and Marvel 2099, and some smaller stuff like Tim Truman's Scouts little universe inside the non-universe of Eclipse,
Hmm.
and Mark Evanier's DN Agents Crossfire universe inside the non-universe of Eclipse, and like I said, we're doing Marvel 2099, and we'll have the Nexus and Badger titles in there
Nice.
too.
Yeah.
Again, a universe within a non-universe at First Comics,
Hmm.
only connected by Grimjack and Sinishur. But it's real fun in that unlike the regular price guide, everything that's in this book is pictured.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
even after the prices fade from being good, it will be a visual checklist on how to do that. And I'm hoping the second one's going to be as good. We've got some great covers, and that will be think it's going to be early May on sale. I think we'll hit the first week of May with that. And then the regular price guide comes out in July, and 54th edition of that. And then we're working
Wow.
on a book. We're working on a book about war comics for the fall.
You are, as you say, a busy person with lots on your plate.
Yeah, I honestly, given the choice, I would always pick busy over not.
Hmm, hmm.
Occasionally, a little more calm would be good, but you know, we don't get a lot of choices about that.
Right, right. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the work in comics. I appreciate the work about comics. I appreciate the work in comics about comics. All the prepositions you might imagine, and looking forward to all of the things that are to come.
Man, thanks so much for having me on. I love, clearly, as my friends will tell you, the usual goal is get me to shut up. But I love the
You were
chance. I
great.
love the chance. I love the chance to talk about this stuff. And I think that doing shows like this, it's how we connect in an era where, we got pretty cut off by COVID.
Hmm.
And this
True.
this kind of stuff allows us to reach out and find that commonality that we have with other people, including people we might not think that we had anything in common with. So
Very
I
true.
love this kind of stuff, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for saying yes and glad to have you back anytime, by all means.
Glad to do it, man.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right.